So, time for a bit of a primer before we, dive to kind of as a kind of a hindsight. You can think of this as effectively season 2 in hindsight. Well, season 1 and 2 in hindsight. Because I have adopted the whole, I like data, I like numbers and whatnot. And so I figured I'll go ahead and I'll codify the different totals and see how I feel about uh, each thing, which is kind of funny considering how many points ended up getting distributed between the two seasons, which have literally the same number of episodes, which is kind of funny because you might think, oh, the later seasons would be at a severe disadvantage. Well, I've been bitching a lot about pacing. You seen, so this is kind of factored into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to explain my rating system here, because I've decided that to kind of further separate me from the lore runner, I'm going to give each episode of a work that I cover, a grade, a letter grade, effectively, of how much quality I feel is in the work, and which is funny because lore runner does a color system. I do a letter ranking system because I feel a letter ranking system kind of gets the information across a lot better than a color does, really, because you don't. Yes, I'm doing an explanation, but I'm not going to really need to fully explain, right? So let's start at the easiest rank to give, which is F rank. Like, this is very simple. If the Valley of Bowser music is playing, and then you get that red tinted intro. That's a rant view. That episode, or episodes, as the case may be, because I cover multi-parters in one. That's an F rank. You don't even need me to say it. It's bottom of the barrel. It's terrible. It's bad. There you go. Oh, then you have your E rank, which is the equivalent of what the lore runner calls a one-off. So an E rank episode is something that is honestly bad, but doesn't quite have is bad, but it doesn't quite have the oomph needed to dip it down below into rant view status. Either it doesn't need to, it doesn't insult it doesn't insult my intelligence, or it doesn't do something that I feel, that feels to me like, why the hell are the feminists tearing this fucking piece of shit to shreds? It's, that kind of an idea here. Because what ends up happening with an E rank episode is I'm just waiting for it to end, but it's not quite bad enough that I feel like it deserves that rant view status. It is easier to get rant view status out of me than it was for the lore runner to hand out lamentation status, for example, but I still kind of want to try and temper myself on that, so that way I'm not just handing out rant views left, right, and center. Despite what the latter half of season 2 would have you believe. But we'll get there. Then we have the D rank. D rank is kind of is similar to E rank, but it is a step up from E rank. It didn't it it wasn't teetering on the edge of rant view status. It was more of just like, this is a subpar episode. I don't want it. I don't want to ever engage. I don't really want to engage with this again. It was just there. So it's there, moving on, kind of thing. The C rank is what I consider to be an average episode, right? Right, pretty much right down the middle. If I was using, for example, SF Debris' review numbering system, it would be a 5. These would be 5 out of 10 episodes, right? Right. neutral. I am mostly neutral on the episode, therefore it gets a C rank. Very simple, very eloquent, you know. B rank. Hank. Episode was good, but could have been a hell of a lot better. It could have been a hell of a lot better, and you know, and honestly, could have could have really. How do I put this? Could have really been improved if if a couple of things were tweaked to really make it a truly great thing, right? This would be this would be hovering around like the 7 to 8 kind of scoring system, right? Right, uh, that kind of thing. Then you have, of course, the A rank. This is the episodes that are like, yes, this is good stuff. This is kind of what I come to. Insert whatever franchise we're taking a look at here. In this case, Yu-Gi-Oh. This is what I come to Yu-Gi-Oh for. This is a good episode, kind of thing. It's not one of my favorites of all time, which is what the S rank is for, obviously, but it is nevertheless really good. I do have point values kind of attached to this, but it's not really a out of 10. It's just this is the Hey, it's Alex from the editing room here. I forgot to say anything about the frickin' S rank. Whoops. S rank is pretty self-explanatory, honestly. It is literally just this is what I consider to be one of the best. The kind of what others would call 10 out of 10 kind of thing. I guess I didn't really fully need to explain that, but I just felt like wait, I didn't even mention S, and I bothered to go through the others, even though the others are pretty self-explanatory. I mean, like C rank, average. I mean, duh, right? But yeah, I just wanted to chime in here real quick and give an explanation on that. All right, back to past me. Points that get distributed for kind of a season total, right? You know, uh, E through A is 1 through 5, very simple, and S is 7 because I like the number 7, and 6 just would have felt awkward to me. So there you go, and of course F is obviously 0 because why the fuck would I give points to a rant view, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly start listing off the episodes. I don't know if I'll have future Alex do anything with this because I have got what is that, like 10 days to get this done before it needs to go live. So yeah, we'll see how much work I end up putting in, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna rattle off some of the episodes. We'll start with season 1, and then I'll give you a kind of a grand total at the end of it. At the end of it, to kind of, and I'll even give an explanation of why the letter grade is the way it is going forward. Starting with episode 1, Heart of the Cards, Herds. I use the dub names, so as ever, keep that in mind. And I will explain some of these because some of these ranks are actually because the sub was actually better. This was just B in both because it actually really it was a really good first episode, and I mean the iconic my grandfather's deck has no pathetic cards scene. Gauntlet is thrown. That was Yugi facing the tape. It's only a B rank because the dub actually was kind of intriguing, whereas the sub was, in my opinion, effing stupid. Which is funny because there's actually a couple of plot points in season 1 specifically where the sub has it as a specific plot point, and I'm just sitting there asking the simple question of why the fuck did you chicken out of supernatural elements in your show when you've already shown supernatural elements in your fucking show? It's a double standard. Get your head out of your ass. And Gauntlet is Thrown is a great example of that. The dub leans into the supernatural elements of, like, it's a magical clone of Pegasus instead of facing a frickin' cursed videotape, which is just. Look, nobody wants to see Yami Yugi take on Sadako, okay? Hey, nobody cares about Yugioh enough for that. No matter how much Kazuki Takahashi, was into horror or drawing horror manga. Then there's the Journey to Duelist Kingdom, which was a D rank episode. I'll probably have a list that slowly forms as it goes. It'll probably get messy, but either way. Hey, I'll just stick to listing it off. But Journey to Duelist Kingdom, the boat episode, excuse me. Didn't much care for it. Thought it was kind of crap, admittedly. Didn't quite dip to E because there was a couple of interesting ideas there, and there's some stuff that gets paid off later. So that's why it's a D rank. But otherwise, it's just for me, it's a skip, Then there's the Weevil two-parter. This is what I consider an average episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's got some good, it's got some bad. It's actually pretty good, and it kind of helps with the whole, it actually starts us on the whole season 1 is D&D thing, which is actually a kind of a way I've kind of parsed it in my mind to make season 1 much more enjoyable. And I know that'll piss some people off, especially when I start listing off the rankings for some of the season 2 episodes. Spoilers, they're not very high, but again, I'm not here to cater. I'm here to explain. First Duel is an E rank. I feel like in both languages, it just comes across as, well, we got to make Maya bitch because she's an opponent. And we're never going to give her any on-screen victories because why would we do something like that? She needs to kowtow to the men's development instead. Yeah, I'm not a fan of what they do with Mai in the series, if you can't tell. Then there's Attack from the Deep. C rank because it's an average episode. Only memorable for one thing: Attack the Moon, which they turned into an actual card, which is honestly awesome. Still awesome. Now, we have our first example of a time where I separated what effectively was a multi-parter into a thing, mostly because I would have felt compelled to drag the score of the two-parter down as a result. But everything's relative is an E rank with the Ghost Kaiba two-parter that it leads into. Hey, Alex from the editing room again. So apologies for the second time I am interrupting, and for the second time that I am going to have things kind of, blurry in the background here. So, I didn't say why everything's relative is an E rank. Simply put, it is literally just a spat of, nobody cares. The Mokuba duel is freaking pathetic. Mokuba's reasoning is frankly idiotic, and it kind of just is a stopgap in order for us to get to the awesomeness that is the Ghost Kaiba two-parter. So, yeah, that's pretty much the explanation there. Sorry for interrupting yet again. to being an S rank. I've always loved the Ghost Kaiba two-parter, and yes, I absolutely prefer the evil clown being Kaiba's dark side. Right? Where one twist of fate could have turned him effectively into the Joker. I prefer that idea as opposed to the Death Impersonator that somehow is able to perfectly mimic vocal cords because as he's Kryptonian or whatever. The dub gets the Ghost Kaiba 2 part of the S rank there. So. Then there's the Joey versus Rex Raptor bit. That's a D rank. It honestly feels like they could have condensed the Rex stuff into one episode, but they kind of stretched it out with pointless melodrama. Fucking hell. That, by the way, is what dragged it down to a D rank, for the record. I could have given it an E rank, but I don't know. There's just too many cool things about that two-parter that actually work, you know? Then there's the Evil Spirit of the Ring, which is the cosplay duel. That was awesome, A rank. I always enjoy that episode. Also, Season 0 can't be canon because of that episode. My opinion. The Panic two-parter is a B rank. There is a lot of interesting things going on with Panic. And I've always kind of enjoyed the idea of Panic just being this big bully. Because, it kind of takes from the Dragon Ball mentality, right? Sizes and everything. I mean, there's literally been multiple opponents that have been smaller than Goku that could kick Goku's ass. Vegeta, Frieza, and Buu, especially Kid Buu, Vegeta, Frieza, and Kid Buu coming to mind immediately when I say that. So, yeah, good stuff. Scars of Defeat, E rank. That is, of course, where Kaiba shows up his dual disc thing, and Joey tries it and he fails. Because he's suddenly dueling like he's never played the game before in his fucking life. And on top of that, we learn about Seto's motivation for being on Duelist Kingdom Island, which is something that they will promptly forget at the end of the episode. I have evidence of that in later episodes that I bitch about. So there's that. Then we have two multi-parters that are average in my opinion. I know a lot of people. I personally like Arena of Lost Souls, but it is an average episode. And Double Terrible Duel. I know a lot of people swear by Double Terrible Duel. That's against the Paradox Brothers. It is a good thing. I was gonna put it up as B, but I was like, nah, those are just kind of average. Then there's the one that everybody's going to want to fucking drill me alive for, because I gave Face Off a rank of E. It would have been a rant view had the Japanese version not had that awesome speech from Seto just before he summoned Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon about the thirst for battle. Shining Friendship was better than I expected, but it only was enough to bump it up to a D. That was Taya facing Mai in one of the two most pointless duels in the entirety of the first two seasons, and I mean that sincerely. We'll get to the get what originally I thought was the third later, but no, it's not. Then you have Champion versus Creator, which is another S rank. I freaking love Kaiba trying to take on Two World. That was awesome. The night before, D rank. Okay episode, but really you could have chopped it and nothing of value would have been lost. Dual Identity is one where I kind of split the difference because I like Dual Identity in the dub, but I actually don't like it that much in the sub. And it's all boils down to the simple premise of wait, Atem was willing to kill Kaiba and we're just suddenly fucking cool with that? Thank you, dub, for actually addressing that. Keith's machinations, A rank. I mean, seriously, that this, in my opinion, right here, him facing Bandit Keith in season 1, is either by memory is part of what I would consider possibly a 3-way tie for Joey's best duel in the show. Because he's got let me take it back. 4. Because I've actually, seen Awakening of Evil. So it's part of a 4-way tie, which is ironic because there's one in the first 4 seasons. You have Keith's machinations right here. Then you have his one from season 2, Awakening of Evil, where he faces Rashid / Odeon. Then you have a season 3 one, which is the big one, the one he should have frickin' won, but I'll get into that way later in season 3. And then the one in season 4. Now you're probably thinking, which one in season 4? The armor duel. The one where we basically turn this into a where the duel turns into a tokusatsu battle. And for good reason. Because of the very nature of that whole thing. Best of Friends, Best of Duelists, which is what this is, of course, the finals of Friendship, the Duelist Kingdom final match, which is completely fucking pointless, and I absolutely prefer the fact that in the manga, Yugi and Joey are like, no, we're not gonna duel each other for Pegasus's amusement. Screw you, Pegasus. Get down here and face Yugi. So that's what got that one a D rank. Because of the pointlessness of it, there is some stuff that bolsters it a bit. That's why I went for a D rank. But honestly, the pointlessness of it and the fact that it's the ending is so fucking predictable, it's not even funny. Is frankly just what drags that one down. There's no tension in that duel, even though the episode itself is begging for there to be tension. Because we all know what Yugi's going to do with the money. He's going to hand the check to Joey and say, go save your sister's sight. That's not a fucking shock to the system. That is what is actively going to happen. And you know it, I know it, we all know it. Match of the Millennium, however, is indeed an S rank. I even love the subplot with Honda and Yami Bakura. That stuff was actually really good. With Tristan and Yami Bakura, that stuff was awesome. S rank there, absolutely. Aftermath, the shoddy episode, B rank. Good stuff. The Rebecca two-parter was our first rant view. I don't like Rebecca. She can go. She can fuck off. The sad thing is that she will, unfortunately, continue to be present. Legendary Heroes, or Dual Monster Quest if you prefer. I hate to say that, but D rank. This one was not as good as I remembered, mostly because it's just a greatest hits of beats from the entirety of Duelist Kingdom, and Seto being pissy about working with people even though he's supposed to have grown, which is actually going to lead to a plot hole later in the show. Yeah, that's why this one got dragged down, because there is no real justification for Seto continuing to be an asshole other than magic reset button. Dungeon Dice Monsters. Duke is Duke is an asshole, and Ryotogi is no better. Also, in order to justify the humiliation Joey goes through in the sub, he's a misogynist. Janochi is portrayed as a misogynistic pig. Fuck this four-parter. Janochi is not a misogynistic pig. Get your head out of your ass and go back to writing school. Or at the very least, he's review the fucking scripts from the previous episodes. He's only been a misogynist in one setting, and that setting got nuked out of existence because it was a fanfic setting. Anyways. But that is, of course, season 1. But I will, of course, go ahead and tell you the totals at the end. Because now it's time to move on to season 2. The sub gave The Mysterious Duelist, that is the mind-controlled Bandit Keith two-parter, that got a B rank because it's actually better in the sub. Probably would have been a C or D if I was looking at just the dub. The Past is Present is a C rank. It's okay. That's, of course, the one where Seto goes and talks to a Shizu and gets all those visions and everything. Yeah. Stepping Out. We didn't need Step Johnny in the fucking show, and hell, it was so bad even my goddamn foot just wanted that fucking video to end. And for God's sakes. I literally only talked about that episode for 15 minutes. That's how bad that episode was. Anyways. Obelisk the Tormentor. This is, of course, Seto taking Obelisk the Tormentor out for a test drive, and it's an average episode. Though kind of reckless, Seto, that you would risk your Blue Eyes cards. Are we sure there's only 3 active copies in the world? Or is a corporation? Because honestly, I still feel corporations would not let that happen, especially not in real life. But that's just me. So I could have been a lot harsher on this next one. Stalked by the Rare Hunters. This is, of course, where Seeker, the rare hunter, the Exodia rare hunter, literally turns Joey into a moron in the sub. The dub literally cut out the whole Honda smacking sense into Janochi scene, and is all the better for it, in my blunt opinion, because I'm sorry, but that woe is me scene in that episode was absolute fucking trash and was borderline character assassination. Yugi versus the Rare Hunter, D rank. I had some nostalgia for this one in the for the dub of this episode, but to be blunt, it didn't really mean much of anything at the end of the day. Yugi defeats Exodia because we all knew he would. Hopefully this will be the last time I'm interrupting things, but before you comment, yes, I know. Oh, ESP Duelist comes before Master of Magicians. I actually had the numbering on my thumbnails proper, and I got the order mixed up on my listing, so that is why I screwed up. I will get to ESP Duelist in a minute, but honestly, my whole point with this is that you can watch some of these multi-parters in almost any order, with barring a few exceptions, and you literally would lose nothing. I'm not a fan of season 2 if it's not obvious. Anyways, back to Past Alex. Master of Magicians. That is the three-parter with Pandora / Arcana, and it's not very good in my opinion. It is an E rank. The main reason why is I don't like either Pandora or Arcana as a character, and the dub for this one sucked. It was so bad. It's amazing. You have Sam Riegel going way too fucking over the top in the crap. Yep. And honestly, it's like, and the explanation for Pandora's motive specifically, that's the subversion version explanation for this guy is his Merrick is going to mind control his girlfriend so that she'll be with him. If you're not understanding the point, having sex with a woman while she's under mind control is rape. There's only two things about this episode that are actually cathartic, and that is Dark Magician Girl beating this misogynistic pig to the fucking ground, and the memes of the Dark Energy Disc. Otherwise, fuck this episode. Made no better by the next two-parter, which is the ESP Duelist. This is against Esperoba, and he is one of the most boring-ass characters in the entirety of the show. Also, giant fucking plot hole. Well, I shouldn't say giant plot hole, but plot hole involving Jinochi not knowing how to tribute summon, even though he did so perfectly fine when he had Red Eye stolen from him. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this episode either. Which you might think, wait, an E rank for that one? That's a little harsh, don't you think, Blue Wolf? Borderline fucking rant view? Yeah, no, I'm sticking to that. Master of Magicians came damn close, and if not for the catharsis of Dark Magician Girl, that would have dipped into rant view status easily. I probably would have went that far. And ESP Duelist was also pretty much one away because I am sick and tired of the show treating Joey like shit. Speaking of treating Joey like shit, Playing with a Parasite, the Weevil two-parter. Too long, and Weevil's presence amounts to fuck all, except continuing to make pretty much every single fucking opponent other than... Hang on. So, Rex, Yugi, Mako, and Rashid. 4 opponents that do not cheat in the entirety of the duels that he has. That's wrong on like every level, my opinion. So yeah, Playing with a Parasite, fuck that shit. Mime Control, the 5-god combo against Osiris, the Heaven Dragon. And in case you haven't seen my Mime Control video, Mime Control was the 5-god combo. I am not going to call Osiris anything other than Osiris, the Heaven Dragon, because, well, pick your battles, right? Pick your hill to die on. That is the one hill I will go ahead and plant my flag in. It should be called Osiris, not Slifer. Mostly because of the behind-the-scenes reasons of why it's called Slifer the Sky Dragon. There's a reason why Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged refers to it as Slifer as Slifer, the executive producer. Legendary Fisherman is a C rank because Mako actually fights fair, but it kind of just boils down to average. Double Duel is a D rank because both Seto and Kaiba are fucking dicks in it for basically no reason. He's in The Rescue is a clip show and therefore is an E rank. I honestly could have given it rent view status, but it didn't really have that oomph to drag it down. It was just a really bad, boring episode. Moving on. So I mentioned that there was a duel that I felt like that originally I thought was pointless because I had only ever seen it in the dub, or I alluded to the fact that the reason was because I had only ever seen it in the dub, and that is of course Friends to the End, the anchor duel. I like this episode. I like this 4-parter in the sub, and that's why it's getting an A rank. I would have put it at S, but that dub really drags it down, unfortunately. And even then, I don't think it's that great, but it is much better than I would have otherwise thought. Which, by the way, yes, you can take to mean that I would have probably given rant view status to it had I been doing exclusively the dub. But that's just me. Shadow of a Duel. This is Yami Bakura going in and sending Bones and his crew to hell. Average episode, C rank. Lights Camera Duel. A knockoff of Jean-Claude Van Damme is a misogynistic pig that wants Mai to be his trophy wife. Fuck that episode. F. Let the battles begin. This is everybody gathering at the blimp to go and participate in the Battle City Finals. Average episode, C rank. Oh, Dark Spirit revealed. So Yugi versus Yami Bakura would have been interesting. It was interesting when I was a kid, but man, this episode doesn't hold up to scrutiny as much as I thought. Mostly because Merrick's whole frickin' yapping in Yami Bakura's ear constantly drags the episode down to terabad levels of awful. Oh, there was some stuff that actually bolstered it back up, but regardless, yeah, no. Rage of the Egyptian God cards. That is the backstory element where Shoddy explains how Pegasus created the God cards. Average episode, not much to say about it. Important, but average. Awakening of Evil, Jinoshi versus Rashid, A rank. Both versions were exquisite, but it was still a really good episode, and I actually found myself enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. Very simple, very simple. Mind game. Mai versus Yami Merrick. Congratulations, Kazuki Takahashi. You fridged Mai, and that meant because Studio Gallop was either mandated or too cowardly. Take your pick. We have Mai getting fridged in the show too. Duel of Destiny. That is Kaiba versus Ishizu. The sub brought that episode up to B rank because it is actually kind of good. Kind of crap, if I'm honest, in the dub, but in the sub, it's actually really good. And there's a lot of good lines from Seto specifically. Fresh reminder for those that don't know, Seto is what I refer to Kaiba in as to that. What is the name I use to refer to in the sub and in the dub, I call him Kaiba, if that makes any sense. So. Then there's the Tomb Keeper's Secret, which is the backstory, Shizu explaining how Yamimura was born, and it just paints both the Shizu and Rashid as either stupid, negligent, or stupidly negligent. Pick one. And Showdown in the Shadows is just an average episode to round out season 2. So there we go. That is me getting caught up on all of this stuff. So the last thing I want to mention here right at the end is, if you're paying attention to the rankings, season 1 is, and again because of the numbering system, E to A is an increase of points 1 through 5, with S being the 7. So, if you're paying attention, season 1, and keep in mind I combine give a total score to a multi-parter as opposed to each individual part, so that's also kind of a factor here. So if you're paying attention, I'm not going to go through the whole list. The total I came up with was 75 points for season 1, with season 2 only scoring 58 points. Still better than I was expecting season 2 to do, because I've never been a big fan of season 2, if I'm honest. But at the same time, season 1 is definitely more of my preference here. So the idea here is that I prefer season 1 to season 2, and I know that's blasphemy to a lot of people. But you know what actually helps? Helps for me anyway. The fact that I'm moving on to season 3 now. And season 3, for all intents and purposes, by memory, of course, or by, as far as my memory goes, is still pretty good. Regardless of any of that, though, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to chop this little primer off. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm not, of course, not going to do any kind of substantial a substantial like edit thing for the ending or anything. This is just a little bonus kind of extra thing. So really, I'm just going to edit it down, get rid of any ums and as much of the dead air as I can, and then just kind of put this out. So now that the primer is done, I will see you next week for the Virtual World arc. Blue Wolf Alex the Lore Walker signing out. Have a good one. Dual stand by.